Okay, we're picking up now in chapter 6 of Luke. Jesus has come down. Let's see, he has done his miracles, and now he's chosen his apostles, and now he's coming down to the crowds, and he begins to teach his disciples. He started with the Beatitudes, if you remember. They're a little different than the ones that Matthew gave, but they're kind of similar. Blessed are the poor, blessed are those who hunger, and those who weep, and those who are persecuted. And then he gives four woes, which are the opposite of those four blessings, and kind of turning everything upside down. And now he gets right into it. So if you remember in Matthew's gospel, you had the Beatitudes, and then Matthew went from there. Do you remember what he goes into next in Matthew's in the Sermon on the Mount? We started with the Beatitudes, and then he gets into, you're the salt of the earth, you're the light of the world.
I know Matthew 7 is the one that says don't judge. Matthew 7.
Yeah. That's at the end, but in Matthew 5, and then it starts into, you've heard that it was said, do not murder, but I say don't be angry, don't lust, I say don't. Goes through some of the commandments of the law. Luke kind of in this Luke's version, he gets to skips that whole part and goes right to loving your enemies, which is really interesting. You have these blessings and then the woes, and then immediately goes right to on how we're to love our enemies. So let's get into that, and then I want to come back to why does Luke put that right up front? For Matthew, the account of the sermon, he puts the law up front of, I didn't come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill the law. But for Luke, it doesn't really say much about anything about the law. He gets right to loving your enemies. So,
but Luke's really not talking to people that would even understand the law, right?
correct. He's not writing this for Jews, but for Gentiles. And as Gentiles, they are those who are, in a sense, considered the enemies of the Lord. So even here, even in his instructions to us, you can see the big tent that he's drawing for those to receive the good news. So let's pick it up, verse 27 to 31. Let's just see here. Bob, follow what you. It's gonna skip in a second. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger, and I gotta find it again. Okay. If you would read that for us, 27 to 31.
But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. To the one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you. And from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about our enemies here. We'll start with the first, I would say, 4 commands in those first 2. There's 2 sets of 4 here, and then a summary statement. So let's talk the first 4 commands in this passage. Are what?
Love your enemies.
Love your enemies.
Okay, love your enemies. Yeah.
Let's don't curse them.
You skip one.
Okay.
Do good to those who hate you.
Yeah. Good to those who hate you. Bless those
Who curse you.
curse you. And then what's the last one?
Pray for those
Pray for those
Who abuse you.
who abuse you.
So, all right. So love your enemies, and that's a tough one. When you think about who are our enemies, who is considered our enemy?
Oh, I wonder if there's a piece of me that wants to say non-Christians, but I'm not sure that's the answer you're looking for.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think that there are plenty of non-Christians that we would consider friends
Right, right.
or neighbors. But and fact is there are some who would claim to be Christians that could be our enemies too.
That's true. Yeah.
What makes someone our enemy?
Well, I think those other three would pretty much sums up what the enemy would be. Someone who hates you and abuses you and curses you.
Yeah. Yeah, generally the enemy is like those who are opposing you. They are, your enemy is someone who seeks your defeat. He's opposed to you. And so they're just, and there's a hatred there, there's a cursing or abusing. So in this time, in that first century, who were the enemies of
The Romans,
the Romans? Yeah, there are many Romans who were enemies.
Pharisees.
The Pharisees, their own people, the Jews as well, also were opposing them, hating them. And then Jesus gives these 4 commands here of how we are to deal with those who hate us. And let's see. So what does that look like? What does it look like for us to love our enemies,
Well,
to actually obey this command?
Insurmountable.
It feels that way. Yeah. What is specifically are we to do?
Do good for them.
Do good to them. If you remember Romans, is it Romans 12, where it says, do not take vengeance. If your enemy is hungry,
right. Feed them.
give him something to eat. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. So if they're in need, then do good for them. Do good for them. Even though they hate you, we have opportunities here to do good for them to do that. As for those who curse us, who speak ill of us, who slander us,
like saying, try to treat them with God's love.
Yeah, isn't that God's love that He loved us when we were His enemies?
Mm.
You know, when we cursed Him, when we hated Him, when we were opposed to Him, He sent His Son while we were still sinners, while we were still His enemies. He
Mm.
loved us. And so for those who hate us and are seeking to do ill to us, we do good to them. To those who are cursing us, we, on the other hand, we bless them. What does that mean to bless someone, and as opposed to cursing them?
To suggest that good things come on them, as opposed to bad things.
Okay, certainly to wish them well, to want good things to happen to them, to wish them good things. Certainly not. I think it's be careful how we talk about them. Whereas our enemy shows us no grace and just accuses us, calls us names. We're racists, sexist, homophobes. We're hateful people. We're the haters. In fact, if you remember in the first century, what the Romans called the Christians, they were called the haters of humanity,
Yeah.
is what the Romans used to call the Christians. And yet we, on the other side, we don't call them names. We actually show them some grace, and if we feel anything toward them, it's not a hateful rage, but more of a sadness, a compassion for their lost position. And I think the most important one, for those who abuse us. What is that? What does he say to do for those who persecute us?
Pray for them.
Pray for them. Yeah. So I want to stress, this is where we get confused a lot, is the difference between love and trust. We're commanded to love everyone, to love our neighbors, to love our enemies here, to love one another. But we're not commanded to trust anyone. And I think that's important to get that, especially when you're dealing with enemies. You can do all those things and still not trust them. It's possible to love someone you do not trust. And so you can love them in a way that you don't notice the way that the love is, that he doesn't say, invite them into your home. He doesn't say, make yourself vulnerable to them. It's do good to them. Even though they hate you, you can do good things for people. Bless them. Watch how you speak about them, speak well of them, speak blessings upon them, and definitely pray for them. But that doesn't mean that we have to be in a relationship with them, someone who's abusing us, that we have to stick around and let them abuse us and our children. That's a foolishness here. But to loving your enemies and how we deal with them, we look at those 4 things, and that's plenty good. So he now moves to the second set of 4. Yeah. And what are those? What's the first one?
Love your enemies. The one who strikes.
Verse 29.
Yeah, it says, to one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also.
Okay. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. Okay. Yeah.
I think you're supposed to say, thank you, may I have another?
Yes. Huh? Okay. Now Matthew has it a little differently. Matthew's account, he says, whoever strikes you on the right cheek, offer to him the left as
Right.
well. And we may have talked about that before, but that's to strike someone on the right cheek is not an act of physical violence against the person, but it's to insult them, to slap, the backhanded slap.
I can't comment, yeah.
Yeah. But Luke doesn't make the distinction the way Luke records it. And again, the way he's recording it is not, I don't look at this and say to take it in this literal way, because in one sense you're reading this, I'm like, this is not good counsel. To allow people to abuse you, to take your stuff and to give them more stuff. It's like that leads to chaos in society. I don't think that's what Christ is going for here, but he speaks in very bold, broad brush ways, like Proverbs, that are easy to remember. So he strikes you in one cheek, offer the other also. What's the next one he says? I think these really go together.
If they take your cloak, give them your tunic.
To one who takes your cloak, do not withhold your tunic. So what is the cloak? What's the tunic? Do you remember?
The tunic is the undergarment. The cloak, what you would see on the outside. The colorful thing, the white thing is the inside.
Yeah. So the cloak is the costly thing that's really worth something. The tunic is the undergarment. So is Jesus saying that if someone steals my cloak, I need to give him my tunic and walk around naked? Is that what he's saying? Because there's no other clothes. That's all you have is your tunic and your cloak. And he's saying here, if someone takes that cloak, the expensive one, say, oh, you forgot something, and you give him the tunic as well. And then you walk away naked. Is that what he's calling us to?
I don't think so, but let me ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
Luke and Matthew and Mark are known as the synoptic gospels. And most people would say that means that you kind of take them together to get a complete picture, a synopsis. And so is it possible that, you mentioned, well, Matthew says this, but Luke says this. In interpreting each of them, is it possible that we should take to get a full picture to see what both of them say on it?
There's some value to that. I would suggest definitely some value, and it's helpful to compare and contrast. But I think when you read it, Luke is driving at something that's a little different than what Matthew is driving at. And
Okay.
sometimes when you put them together, you miss the real point he's trying to make.
Okay.
So as I'm reading this, I'm like, there's no way that you can look at these commands and take them literally. It just doesn't make sense. It's again, the first one, okay, so someone pops me, smacks me on the cheek, and I'm supposed to just stand there and say, just go ahead, hit me again. You know, that's come on. And then taking your cloak really takes it to another level because Matthew doesn't reference that at all, I don't think. Um, but he's like, take your cloak, and now here's my tunic too, and just take everything from me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think so.
In terms of what you said about the very first one, this is the same Jesus who says, "I'm leaving. Make sure you get a sword now."
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, so again, he is speaking proverbially here. This is not an exhaustive command he gives to us. He's speaking in bold. It's a punch to it, but it gets us thinking about ourselves, about our bodies, about our life, and how we're to reflect upon these things. Because let's go to the next two. What does he say next?
To everyone who begs from you, and from, yeah, I'm missing one piece. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back.
So give to everyone who begs from you. Let's start with that. Is that a good, I mean, is that to be taken like that? Really? Everyone who begs from me, I have to give to them.
You'll be broke before you get through Somersworth, New Hampshire these days.
Right? And not only that, but you have in the scriptures, you have Paul saying in, was it Thessalonians? He says, let him who does not work, don't let him eat, right? And that they were
What? Oh yeah, don't. Okay, yeah.
him who doesn't work, don't let him eat. And to
Yeah.
Timothy, when there are widows in the church who have need, he's very specific about which ones they're supposed to give to and take care of, and not just to anybody. So again, what does he mean by this? He can't possibly mean that every single beggar I see, I have to give something to.
Right.
What's going on here? And then the last one really takes it to another level. What's that?
And as you wish that others would do to you, do to them.
Before that one.
Oh, begs from you, and from the one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back.
Yeah. To the one who takes away your good. Goods. Do not demand them back. All right. So somebody comes and steals from me. I'm just open for business here, guys. Just take everything. Just plunder me here. Just take everything. It's almost like you can understand St. Francis of Assisi when he decides, I'm just going to give everything up and walk out of this place naked and just start all over again. Everything's gone. So let's talk about what do you think as you look at these four, and I put them as in groups of four here because the last one sums it all up. What's he saying here? What would you suggest is the point he's trying to drive home to us, his disciples?
Act like Christ in each situation.
And what does that mean to act like Christ?
Well, there were times where Christ was kind to people who didn't care for him, but there are other times where he reads the Pharisees the riot act, calls them a brood of vipers. That doesn't sound loving to me, in a sense.
It feels like it's try to deal with them to improve them. In other words, not necessarily you have to give them everything, but don't look for revenge. Look to teach them or help them. help them come to God.
Yeah. So in this case, it kind of relates to the enemies for starters, in that who strikes you on the cheek? Someone's trying to hurt you. These are people that are seeking to take advantage of you, to take your clothing, to take your goods. Even those who are begging from you are oftentimes, scheming here. We're trying to take something for you and give you nothing for it. So we're walking in a world here of enemies, in a sense, who are doing things, taking things from us. And the point he's looking at here is, you say, okay, to the one who strikes you in the cheek, offer the other also. What are you doing when you're doing that?
You're not returning. Somebody gives you a backhanded comment, a rude comment, you don't respond in kind.
Yeah. You're not taking vengeance. So this is a call against seeking vengeance. And the same thing with the one who takes your cloak, do not withhold your tunic. These two go together. But these are two people that are harming you, taking from you, and you're not seeking vengeance upon them. You can certainly, this is not saying don't report to the police and so forth like that, but this desire to take vengeance, to strike back, he says, do not. That's why I always go to Paul when I want to understand Jesus, because Paul takes these proverbs and he's the lawyer. He's not the poet. He's the lawyer, and he kind of litigates it and shows what does it mean for us as Christians. And there's no command in Paul says turn the other cheek. There's no command of Paul to the churches that says let people abuse you and take advantage of you. There is a command there that says do not take vengeance, my friends. Leave it to the wrath of God. On the contrary, if your enemy's hungry, do good to them, to overcome evil with good. And so in each case, you're receiving a harm and you're returning with grace. To the one who takes your cloak, do not withhold your tunic. We could say, well, that doesn't apply to us because we don't have cloaks and tunics. They do. But the point is, someone is doing evil to you, taking from you, and you are showing them grace. And it's a powerful thing. And then to give to everyone who begs from you, and the one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. Again, what does that say about us? To give to the one who begs of you, and to the one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. What kind of attitude is there?
Gracious.
Yeah. Yeah. Gracious, generous, and we're clearly commanded to those things. They're not seeking vengeance. Again, overcoming evil with good. Because every one of those situations is someone is doing evil here. Someone is taking, and you're going to overcome that by giving, right? And that with that general attitude. So I would suggest that he speaks like he does always. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off, right? If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. He's not calling us to mutilation. He's calling us to an attitude. I think he's calling us here to an attitude, not to specific commands that are to be applied, where you go around letting people beat you up and steal your stuff, and you're giving all those beggars and drunks out there, and so forth like that.
I find Proverbs 15:1. I've memorized it over the years, and I found it very, very true and very effective. And it says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger."
Mhm.
That is true almost every time.
Yeah.
People who are rude to us expect a harsh word. When they get a gentle answer, it puts them on their heels.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So again, what I love about these things is that they're stated in such a way you don't forget them. That's why they're said this way. They just lock in because you see it. You see a person getting smacked in one cheek and turning the other. You can see a person being ripped of his clothing and giving the rest of it. You can see the beggars. You can see those who are taking your stuff, and it's very visceral. These are powerful images, and they stick with you. And the time comes when you're dealing with an enemy, and your inclination is to defend, to attack, to get revenge. And then these images come to mind. You're like, ah, okay, I need to adjust my attitude. I'm called to grace. I'm called to seek their welfare. And the reason why wouldn't I give to anyone who begs from me? Why wouldn't I do that? Even though Jesus said, give to everyone who begs from me.
Well, if you knew they were gonna go buy a bottle of whiskey with it, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And again, begging at that time was a lot different than today.
Mm.
But yeah, it's like you're not doing it because, well, as a Christian, I would say we're not giving because we don't care about them, but rather we know that giving to this situation is bad for them. There's help out there from to get, and I'm enabling them to continue in a destructive lifestyle. So that's why it's like giving to everyone. Like, can you imagine your children doing this to you? Your son is like, has been squandered all your money. He's gotten into debt. He's gotten into trouble. And then he's like, Dad, I want, I need another $1,000 to get to get into the car to go to have a party for my friends. He's like, please, can I have $1,000? He said, no. And he's like, please, 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 please. Didn't Jesus say, give to everyone who begs from you? I'm begging you, Dad. Give me the money. It's like, out of love for him, you better understand this passage and not destroy his life. So, all right. So the summary then, this is the golden rule is what?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
As you wish that others do to you, do so to them. That's your golden rule. That's going to kind of distinguish this here. By the way, that's an old rule before Jesus' time, but he tells it in a different way. Do you know what the original golden rule was?
Mhm.
The original golden rule, the ancient one, is don't do to others what you would not want them to do to you. It's in the negative.
Okay.
And Christ takes it and says it's really more than that. Love is not about not doing. It's about doing. It's about doing good, the kind of good that you would love others to do for you, do that for them. The kind of grace and generosity and kindness that you long to have, show that to others. And there's your rule. So, all right. Well, let's pick it up from here. And let's read our next section. Let's see. Bob Thomas, you want to get the next section here? 32. I'm going to start. Hang on one second here. I'm going to retool this in a minute here. I'm going to put it down below so we can see it better. Okay. Next paragraph, 32 down to 38.
If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful.
Yeah, we'll stop right there. Sorry. This is the next paragraph. I jumped on. So, okay. All right. So now he kind of expounds on what he's just said about to do this. Because now the question is, why should we do this? Why should we show love to our enemies? Why should we bless those? Why should we do all these things? This is extraordinary kindness and love that he's calling us to, and he tells us why. And what's his reasoning here? let's see,
If you do
verse,
something expecting something in return, then you've already got your reward.
Yeah.
If you do something not expecting it, then you'll get your reward in heaven.
so he says here, notice the phrase he uses 3 times there in the first 3 verses. Even sinners do the same. And what is it that sinners do? Well, verse 32. What do sinners do?
They love those who love them.
They love those who love them. Right? Even
Mhm.
even the worst people love those who love them. You know, I'm sure like Charlie Manson loved his mother. You know, you love those who love love you. Love those who love them. Even sinners do that. And not only that, and by the way, sinners, we're not talking about how we've all sinned, but sinners, remember, tax collectors and sinners, these are your people who are really like the wicked and the rebellious, those who hate God, want nothing to do with these things. Even these reprobates who we look down upon as the scum of the earth, as the most wicked, even they love those who love them. That's nothing to write home about. And not only that, but even sinners in verse 33.
You do good to those who do good to you. What
Yeah.
benefit is that to you? Even sinners do that.
Yeah, even sinners do good to those to them. That's obvious. They have those marketing strategies. Have you seen that? They've discovered that if you give somebody something free, like when you go to the mall and they give you free samples, right? It's psychologically, it makes you want to buy there to return the favor in some way. It's
Yeah.
it's a human reaction. It's a natural human reaction that if someone does something good to us and nice to us, we want to in some way reciprocate and return the favor. It's a clever marketing tool that they use. So they start off with giving you something, giving you a gift, a balloon, something. You come to the car dealer and here's some balloons for the kids, and here's some this for you, and you feel obliged to return in some way. Okay, I'll buy the $10,000 car. You gave me a piece of cake. You gave me something. Even sinners do that. Do good to those who do good to them. And not only that, there's one more thing that sinners do in verse 34.
Lending. Don't expect to get paid back.
Lend to those who can pay them back, right? Who can and will pay them back. That's what banks are about. They they don't lend money to everybody. They lend money to those that they are pretty sure are going to pay it back. And if they don't feel that you're going to pay it back, they don't lend you the money. And so, look, even sinners do the same. These are normal things. There's nothing remarkable about that. To love those who love you and to do good to those who are good to you and to lend to those who will pay you back. Nothing remarkable about that. But what does he say about our loving our enemies? What sinners don't do. Well, what do sinners not do? Sinners don't.
Love those who hate them.
Yeah, they don't love their enemies. And they don't. Wait a second. Do good to those who hate them, and they don't.
Lend without expecting anything back.
Yeah, lend to those who can't pay back. There's no grace in them. Sinners don't do that. But who does that?
God does.
Yes. God himself, the Most High God. He loves his enemies. And I think this is why Luke begins with this whole talk of loving your enemies is more than just giving us commands about how we're to live, but teaching us about God, the God who loves his enemies, who does good to those who have hated him, who gives so generously to those who can never pay him back, which exactly is the audience that Luke is writing for. The Gentiles, the outcasts, those who are far from God, those who've always been considered the enemies of God. God loves even them. And this is a very hopeful passage. It's really interesting. It's convicting on one side, but it's so hopeful on the other when he speaks about God in this way. This is the nature of God. This is why we seek to show such grace and generosity and kindness even to those who don't deserve it. But I have a word to say about the lending. It's something I learned from my dad, where he applied this really well. It was the part where he says, if you about lending money, if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? But lend expecting nothing in return. And that's what my dad used to do. People would ask him for money all the time, and he would lend them, but he never expected anything in return. In his mind, it was a gift. Once it left his hands, he didn't think about it again. And even they said, yeah, I'll pay it back. I'll pay it back. And many of them, most of them did not, but sometimes they did. And whenever they paid it back, he considered, hey, look what the money I just found. I just got a little bonus. And he would just, but it was so freeing for him. He never expected back whenever he gave money to somebody. And that kept his heart free. He really tried to apply this text. And even did I tell you the story about the beggars? Giving to everyone who begs from you? I don't know if I told you that story with him. When he was a missionary in Algeria for a couple of years, and it's a very hot climate there, and it's a Muslim country. And one of the things about Islam is that one of the 5 pillars of Islam is giving alms, and it's very important to give alms to the poor. And so there'd be beggars all over the place. And at first, my dad went there, and they have these streets, and one side of the street is in the sun, and the other side of the street is in the shade. And in the shade is where all the market is and where all the people are. And on the sunny side, no one's on the sunny side of the street because it's so hot over there. And my dad, he'd be walking, and the beggars are just flooding the market. They're everywhere, and they're constantly begging for money. And first he gives a little bit here and there, a dime or whatever it is, and it's just he's exhausted by them. They're driving him crazy. It's got so bad that he started to walk on the sunny side of the street. And so he's on the other side all by himself, walking in the heat in the sun just to avoid the beggars. And he just looks like a total fool, he said. Everyone's wondering, who's this crazy guy over there? And one night he was so convicted about this, he said, I got to do something. And so he decided, I'm going to try something here. And so they have these coins that they're most expensive coins, probably, let's say it's like a silver dollar, let's say. And so he says, I'm going to go and ask for some of these, and every time I get them and get a few of them, I'm going to put those in my right pocket, and I'll put the rest of my money in my left pocket. And what I'll do is whenever I see a beggar, no matter who it is, if he asks me for something, I'm going to reach into my right pocket, and if there's a coin there, it's a very valuable coin for them. It would be much more than he would have given otherwise. I'll give him a coin. And if there's nothing there, then I'll just say, may God provide for you, or something like that. And so that's how he kind of tackled it. And so like wondering, well, what happened at that point? Well, you would think that everyone would be hunting him down. That right pocket got so heavy with those coins. He was just gathering up all these coins. He started looking for beggars to get rid of them because he had so many coins. It was weighing his right side down. And so he starts looking for beggars all over the place to unload this stuff here. I thought it was a great way to change his attitude about it and sort of take it on a little bit. But again, that is the beauty of the grace of God, that his love, that we seek to be generous, and there's a real energy to his teaching here. We're not simply reacting to them, but actually going above and beyond.
Hmm.
And why does he do this? Why should we do this? Why should we do these things? What does he say? He gives a couple reasons.
Um,
First reason he gives, verse 35.
Your reward will be great.
Your reward will be great. Oh, that's interesting. And
and you'll be sons of the Most High.
you will be sons of the Most High.
Like father, like son.
Yeah. What does it mean to be, what is it really going to mean for us to be sons of the Most High? Even now, because he's talking to men and women, and we're all going to be sons of the Most High. Why is it important to say we're not just children of God, we're sons of God? Why is that significant?
Well, we get the inheritance.
Exactly right. Sons, we're all sons of God, even the women. Sons get the inheritance. And that's the great reward, is you get everything. So it's one sense, it's like, look at all the things that I'm asking you to stop worrying about and to be free of and to give are all material things of this life that you're going to lose anyway. Be free of that, and look what you're going to inherit, everything for eternal life, the new heavens, the new earth, the great reward. And it says something about God, which we didn't mention, but about the Most High God. What does it say about him in verse 35?
He's kind to the ungrateful and the evil.
Kind to the ungrateful and evil.
Sounds
I
like-
think that's if you want to sum up the specifics of this, is he's giving you pictures, but the point is be kind to the ungrateful and to the evil. Be kind to them, even though they deserve to be punished. They deserve your wrath and anger. You're going to be kind to them. And then one more thing. He is
But
merciful.
he's merciful.
Yeah, he's merciful. So, conclusion.
it's a kind of a roundabout way of revealing what God is like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's really, this is, that's why I say this is poetry, folks. This is absolute poetry, the way he frames it. It's not a law book. He's giving us images and pictures and he's driving home, but he lands exactly with the point he wants to make. That's why when we look up here and you're wondering, okay, Jesus, I hear what you're saying here. This sounds crazy. Loving your enemies, bless those who curse you, turn the other cheek, let them take your tunic, give everyone who begs of you. What are you saying? Well, what he's saying is this: as you wish that others do to you, do so to them. And then we get into this part about, again, sinners and lending and giving and so forth. And what is he really saying? He's saying, be merciful, be kind and merciful. That's even to those who hate us. I think he kind of lands in a very clear point. It's kind of the way he tells his parables. He tells a parable, a strange story with a surprise ending, and then usually at the end, at some point, he kind of gives you the point of it all. What point he's trying to make here as he drives home that to us. So with all these things, just great imagery, driving home a point, how we deal with enemies, and it does say something about God for us here. So any comments or questions on that part here?
Sounds like he reigns on the just and the unjust.
Yeah. So let's go. Be merciful as your Father is merciful. And that's also, I think this is where God the Father is so different than the pagan gods. if you follow the stories of the pagan gods, Zeus or any of these guys, they are not merciful like this. There's no love and grace in them. They are power and control. And Allah is that way too. There's no loving your enemies in Islam. Have you noticed that? It's like
Mhm.
you kill your enemies. That's what you do with your enemies. There's no grace there. Here, God is Father, full of love and grace. And you think about the grace that we as fathers show our children and the kindness that we have for those who rely upon us, even when they're miserable, how much we bear because of our love for them. And he's like, that's the kind of love we have. Yeah.
I find in line with all this, the power of the unexpected on certain types of people. Somebody gives me, not a very nice symbol in public, for example.
Yeah.
And I respond. They're expecting you to respond in kind, and when you don't, it's amazing how it changes the situation. In most cases, it
Yeah.
at least clams them up. It quiets them. Someone cuts you off in traffic. What the expected reaction is, you lay into your horn, maybe give them a certain symbol and this kind of stuff. But when you smile and just wave them in front of you,
Yeah.
even though they are at fault, it
Mhm.
is amazing. We would practice at work. We would practice de-escalating situations. The
Mhm.
flight attendants would work on de-escalating because it's real easy to be escalatory and
Yeah.
not de-escalating.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you do the unexpected, how you can de-escalate a situation.
Yeah. And you mentioned that verse earlier from Proverbs about a soft answer turns away wrath. That's a great proverb and a
It
great
is.
counsel. Just such great counsel, just to deal with such grace to them. And again, it's not about letting people take advantage of you and being a doormat. That's not what this is about. Certainly, our Father in heaven is no doormat, and we're to be like him. And Christ is no doormat at all. But it is this grace and kindness. And even sometimes that kindness leads us to, um, have our enemy arrested, have him, held accountable for things so that he can get the help and get his life together that he needs. You need that check and balance. But even there, it's not out of this vengeance and seeking ill of him, but it's actually seeking good for him and for all of us.
I think these passages help you to prepare for these kinds of situations.
I think so.
Because my natural inclination, like everyone's will be, the next time somebody does something stupid and almost causes an accident and cuts me off, is to lay into my horn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I have thought about it ahead of time, there's a chance that I will smile and wave them in a different reaction than what might be normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to stop recording.